Perhaps you still grapple to understand what is the blockchain, what is distributed ledger technology, and why it is so important behind a cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin and even many other use cases which you might not be aware of. Hi, Eugenia from The Wealth Effect, and I'm going to take you through my explanation and the research that I've done on the blockchain over the last couple of years. So, right, what I'm going to do is get right into it. I'm going to start with the Byzantine generals problem. I don't know if you've heard of the Byzantine generals problem, but that is really at the heart of the blockchain technology and what distributed ledger technology seeks to resolve. Now, I first want to mention to you that blockchain is not the only distributed ledger technology. Another one that comes to mind is hash graph, as well as Tangled, for instance. And all of these technologies have been created to solve the Byzantine generals problem. Firstly, I want to ask you, why do we trust Bitcoin as a currency? Right? Now, the simple answer to that is you can look at an example of sending a very valuable email to somebody. Right. Now, because of the way in which the internet works, you are able to, and you will know this, send the same email to as many recipients as you would like. Right. So if you send me an email, but you send and you claim that this is a very special email and it's worth a lot of money, it's very valuable, but I know that you can send this very same email to many other parties, then it diminishes the value that's contained in that email. So you're able to send the same one over and over again to a number of people, and they are able to do with that information on that email what they please, and they will be able to send it to whomever they want. So that diminishes the value of that information because anyone can have it. But with the blockchain, it stops the problem of double spending. In other words, sending the same email in inverted commas to a number of different people. You can only send your Bitcoin or part of a Bitcoin to one person, because then the blockchain records your new balance as having excluded that Bitcoin. You've now spent that, you've sent it to somebody, and that is excluded from your balance on the ledger that is kept on open source for everybody to see and to inspect. Right, so how does this come down to the Byzantine generals problem? Let's have a look at the Byzantine generals problem. You will see that on the left-hand side, we've got victory. On the right-hand side, we have defeat. This Byzantine general has, in this instance, 6 lieutenants. Right, they are all stationed at different places around this castle, which they seek to attack. Now, the Byzantine general has the challenge that he wishes to have a uniform approach by his generals, because, as you will also agree with me, victory can only be achieved if everybody reaches consensus on the action as well as executing the action at the right time. Only once that is achieved, then we can all execute and we can achieve victory. On the left-hand side, each and every one of the lieutenants perform the required and agreed upon action. So they attack at the right time as per the general's instruction. And because of the uniformity in their approach, they enjoy victory. On the right-hand side, though, you can see that 3 of the lieutenants are executing and exercising the instruction that's been given by the general, but the other 3 are traitors and they retreat when they should be attacking, or they even give wrong messages to the other lieutenants. Right, so in that way there is confusion in the ranks and no war can be won in this way. So the problem with regards to the defeat is that there was not a consensus achieved by everybody in this system. So how does distributed ledger seek to resolve this issue? A distributed ledger, per Wikipedia, is a consensus of replicated, shared, and synchronized digital data geographically spread across multiple sites, countries, and institutions. Now, the key here is there is no central administrator or centralized data storage. So there's no reliance required on one central place or institution. Okay, it is stored geographically dispersed In other words, the network cannot go down, because if one of the nodes, if one of the databases are destroyed or even tampered with or hacked, the rest of the network will still hold on to the true picture that everybody has agreed upon and that everybody can see. So you see on the left-hand side, a centralized system is where every party is dependent on one central party. And of course, if this central party decides to say, you know what, there's not only 21 million Bitcoin, we're going to make 40 million more Bitcoin, and we will just make a new way in which to distribute this. Now, these parties here are at the receiving end of that inflated currency supply, which means all the goods and services become more expensive. And this is typically what happens in the monetary world that we live in. The central banking institution decides how much new currency to put into circulation without having any backing, without having any agreement, without having any economic growth in order to justify that. And these parties are just at the mercy of what happens in a centralized location. When it comes to decentralized, is that every party holds the ledger. And think about it now, because of decentralized ledger technology or distributed ledger technology, Party A and Party B can transact with one another. They don't even need to know one another, because they can fully trust the system, because everybody is connected to the same ledger and keeps a copy of the same ledger with them. So if this party decides, I'm going to steal this guy's money, I'm going to scratch out their name in this ledger, I'm going to write down my name or my account number for that matter in this ledger, then parties B, C, and D will say, wait a minute, we don't agree with what you have in your ledger because we have a different number here. We don't accept what your numbers in your ledger are, and you need to take a copy of our ledger because we know this is the truth and you need to use that. Right, so now any of these parties can transact with one another without the need to trust the other party. Right, I'm going to take it one step further. We've mentioned decentralized there. Really, it goes about distributed ledger technology. Look at the centralized picture here. If the centralized authority in the middle, breaks down or changes anything unilaterally, then all of these parties are at risk, and all of them will be at a loss because they're all dependent on the centralized party. If you look at decentralization, there are a number of hubs, for instance. So if this one doesn't perform, then it'll impact these guys. And if any of them do not keep their end of the bargain, then these guys are at a risk on the outside perimeter. With distributed ledger, if there's a failing in any one of these points, if there's a power failure, and you'll remember that I mentioned geographically dispersed, so if any country has a problem with regards to a huge crisis or power failure, whatever the case might be, it doesn't matter because every one of these nodes are connected still to one another, right? There's multiple points of failure as a result. So this means we can, with comfort, communicate any form of value across this ledger here, across this network. Now, the blockchain is an open source technology, which means everybody can see the code, everybody can test the code, and this way one can ensure that the entire community is in agreement that the data that is kept, the transactions that are put through, and the ledger that is kept is correct and accurate. So you don't need to trust any other party. If you send Bitcoin from here in your country to Taiwan, to China, to Iceland, or Russia, or the States, or Bolivia, you can rest assured that that Bitcoin will arrive on the other side in, as a matter of fact, a matter of 15, 20, or 30 minutes at most, and that your balance will be adjusted, and so will the balance of the party that you've sent it to, because distributed consensus is reached. Right, so we're coming to the end of this video, and I hope that it's meaning something to somebody. Now I'm going to look at just a quick example of a few applications of the blockchain technology. Now, as you know, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies make use of the blockchain technology, but many other forms of exchange can also now benefit from this technology. Right, I'm going to look at a couple of examples. So payment processing and money transfers, which I have just alluded to and which you will know, your cryptocurrencies are typical examples of a decentralized economy being built on the backbone of distributed ledger technology. Supply chains monitoring. All right, you remove paper-based trails, and remember, in supply chain, again, multiple parties transact with one another in the supply chain. All right, so this helps you to track products across the supply chain to ensure that the end user who is buying the product can confirm that this product is exactly the quality that it claims to be, that its seller claims it to have, and also that it has been sourced in a reliable fashion, for instance, not using things like child labor, etc., because distributed consensus have been achieved on each and every one of these items, and you can, for instance, log that information on an RFID tag that is attached to the product. Retail loyalty rewards programs. This is another use case that the blockchain and the distributed ledger technology can be used for. Digital IDs, imagine if you have control over your identity, which is stored on the blockchain. You are the only one with control of it because you have the private key. No one and no institution can unlawfully obtain your identity or do anything with it or monetize it or sell it to another party, etc., because you have complete control over your identity. Right, data sharing. Okay, again, this comes down to exchanging items of value on the internet. Right, copyright and royalty protection. Again, it's an item of value that you can protect with private key encryption on distributed ledger and the blockchain technology. Voting. Right, once you put your national elections entirely on the blockchain, there will be zero chance of anybody tampering with the results, of any cheating in the results or anything like that. So digital voting is one of the best use cases for blockchain technology because of the fact that nothing can tamper with the results and with the things that are stored in this distributed ledger. Right, so nobody can cheat when it comes to elections. Real estate, land, and auto title transfers. Again, a typical example where confiscation is not going to be possible in any environment when the blockchain stores you as the owner. And as a matter of fact, the cost reduction in using blockchain technology to store and transfer property title deeds and vehicle titles reduces costs significantly because the technology takes care of it and there's no need for lengthy paper trails and many role players in the whole process. And again, a very important matter of the blockchain is something to keep in mind. It makes confiscation impossible. Nobody, doesn't matter who they are, whether it's even the government, will be able to confiscate anything of value that belongs to you when it is stored on the blockchain. All right, so that keeps it extremely safe as well because the blockchain is not hackable. The Bitcoin blockchain has not been hacked once in its 10 plus years of existence. Now, hear closely, there has been hacking of exchanges and sometimes of wallets, but not of the blockchain. So if your Bitcoin is stored on the blockchain and you have the private key and you keep it safe, it is not possible for any party to steal or to hack it. Furthermore, because of the fact that there's multiple points of failure, multiple redundancies built into the blockchain by design, it means that it has an uptime of 99.9%. Right, so that is the best system that the world has, is the blockchain. Right, the Bitcoin blockchain has not been hacked once, and it has been had an uptime for 99.9% over the past 10 or 11 years. Now, that is the system that gives trust and value to a cryptocurrency such as the blockchain. Right, food safety, again, where's the food sourced from? There's distributed consensus achieved, and we can trust that. Immutable data, again, immutable, you cannot change what's on the blockchain. If you're keeping anything on the blockchain, nobody can alter it, it cannot be hacked, because the rest of the community will just say, wait a minute, there's a red flag here, we don't agree with this transaction, we reject your block, we have all agreed what the answer is, and you have to abide by what we have agreed. Tax regulation and compliance. All right, this is a very interesting article, feel free to look it up on the Motley Fool. Workers' rights, medical record keeping, weapons tracking, wills, inheritances, equity trading, managing the Internet of Things. I'm not even going to go into the Internet of Things, but that is where devices and appliances talk to one another on a regular basis, maintain themselves, flags, maintenance issues, so that proactive maintenance can be done, etc. Right, expediting energy futures, trading and compliance, securing access to belongings, and tracking prescription drugs. Right, so that is a couple of interesting items that I wanted to discuss. I hope this is of some help to you to understand the blockchain technology, and I will see you again in the next video. Thank you for watching.